Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Grey's Anatomy Season 2, Episode 11, Owner of a Lonely Heart. The episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder about what happened within this episode. So in this episode, as always, we'll start with the patients first. So the first patients were the quintuplets from the last episode, and we were seeing their post-birth care. And while some of them did struggle, only one of them had passed on by the end of this episode due to their heart being unfixable. Then the other quintuplets, they were all determined to be able to make it. Next, we had Mr. Martin from the previous episode as well, the one that Alex gave the incorrect dosage of medicine to. He ended up basically, as Derek put it, he fried his brain and he's pretty much done for. Alex spends the episode trying to come up with a solution. However, Derek basically says there is no solution. If he wakes up, he'll probably be at a great deficit to how he used to be, but most likely he is going to die. Alex then decides to sit with him until he does die, and Derek tells him about the first person that he had killed when he was a second-year resident, basically trying to say like they've all made mistakes that have resulted in patient deaths at some point or another. We next had a new patient who was a woman from the prison who had been in solitary confinement and decided that in order to try to get out of the prison, she was going to swallow a razor blade. However, after an x-ray, it's determined she swallowed 4 razor blades, which means that she ends up needing surgery. However, when she finds out the recovery for the surgery is only 2 days, she gets upset and decides to swallow a light bulb and almost dies. But luckily, Christina came in time, and Burke patched up the aorta, and this will earn her 2 weeks. And then the final patient was Mr. Murphy, who had melanomas and like dead blood pooling in his skin. And so in order to treat him, they brought out leeches to basically thin the blood and allow it to drain properly so that circulation could return to his finger, nose, and I believe one was also on his ear. Now into the personal dramas. So personal drama 1 is the fallout from Alex's cheating in the previous episode. Everyone's being asked to take sides. Alex is being isolated as people pick Izzy's side. But then when Meredith does talk to him, Izzy then gets mad at her. Though in the end, they do decide to cheer Izzy up by buying a dog. The next drama, of course, is we get to see a little bit into. So we know that Christina and Burke had moved in together. And we see them starting to adapt to that life, but there isn't really any drama associated with that, just a couple of scenes of them trying to like mesh their lifestyles together. Derek and Addison are fighting over the trailer as Addison wants to move to like a nicer place, whereas Derek loves the land he's on, wants to stay in the trailer. And then there's some, I wouldn't say it's any sort of relationship developments between Derek and Meredith, but Meredith overhears the conversation between Addison and Derek, their fight at the start, and she basically wants to confirm that Derek is still the person that she knew him to be, and the person she knew him to be would not give up the trailer. So they have a few conversations throughout the episode about the trailer and whether or not he's going to give it up, ultimately deciding that he assures her at least that he's not going to give it up. And then at the very end of the episode, Addison finds Derek in a gallery over an empty operating room and tells him that she is lonely. Oh, I forgot. The mother of the quintuplets seems to have some sort of depression because she blames herself for not terminating some of the babies, but trying to carry all of them to term, and having 4 out of the 5 having severe health issues. However, only one of them did end up dying. but she does blame herself for that because she was the one on her own who made the decision to keep all the babies, even when the doctors and her husband had suggested potentially terminating a couple to give the others a better chance. And then there's a little bit of a drama between Olivia and George, as Olivia still has feelings for George. George doesn't have feelings for her, or at least claims not to, but is still hung up on Meredith. And basically, over their patient, they kind of argue about the fact that he still likes Meredith, but Meredith doesn't even know he exists. And even the patient says that, he loved his wife, but his wife didn't love him back. And sometimes living with someone who can't love you back is more lonely than just not having them there at all. And this entire episode kind of followed that loneliness theme. But that's what happened. Now that we've been reminded about what happened within the episode, it's now time to rank the episode. As always, we will be ranking on our two lists, the mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. So with our mostly objective rank values, I've highlighted those I felt applied within this episode, and we start with our single episode supporting character introductions, which is Constance Ferguson, who is the prisoner who has come in from solitary confinement, having eaten 4 razor blades. Then we have Carl Murphy, who is the man who needs leeches on his finger, nose, and ear to induce blood flow, as he had had recent surgery for melanomas and the blood was pooling. That brings us to 2 points. Next, we had our multi-episode supporting character development, and this has to do with Dory and her depression and her self-blame for the status of the Quints, wondering if she had made different decisions, if, they would have been healthier. However, the doctors were suggesting she kill 2 of her children before they had a chance to fight to live. Meanwhile, only 1 of her children died, so really she's up 1. And I know that that just sounded so terrible what I just said. But if she looks at it that way, 1 of the children who survived would not have had she made a different decision. And so ultimately, I still feel that she made the right decision and the right call to keep all of her children and at least give all of them a chance to fight to survive. But she does go through a bit of like the depression for that decision. And then next we have our multi-season main character development, which is that Izzy Meredith and George get a dog and they bring one home. And that brings us to a +4, which brings us to 8 on the positive side. However, there still is some negatives. Obviously, there's a supporting relationship regression or breakup, and obviously there's a lot of fallout from Alex's cheating in the last episode that is coming out in this episode. They want everybody to pick sides, or at least Izzy wants everyone to pick sides. There's the emotional fallout. Obviously, they are not even speaking. Then there also is a fight between Derek and Addison over whether or not he should keep his land and his trailer on that land or sell it and they get like a nice house, because when they were in New York, they had a really nice apartment and like home in the Hamptons, and now they're in a trailer on some random land and that he bought, and Addison isn't really happy to be there, but Derek does not want to move, and throughout the episode reassures Meredith that he's not going to move either. And that's -2 points for both of those things. And then the next is a -4 points, and this is because there is a weak or dislikable supporting character, and that's Constance Ferguson. And it's not that she's a prisoner that makes her dislikable, it's her personality. The way she speaks, the little pet name she keeps giving everybody, the fact that she's willing to eat razor blades, swallow a light bulb, which is just the dumbest thing anybody could ever do. Literally do not know how anybody who has had the privilege of making it to adulthood would think eating a light bulb is a good idea. do not comprehend it at all. Anyways, very dislikable character. Even her story, like when she was like talking about like, oh, she felt so lonely. She killed 3 people because her boyfriend was going to leave her if she didn't take meth and go and commit a robbery with him. Like, it's not even sympathetic, honestly. It's like, yeah, you made a bad choice and you're still making them. There's been no character growth or development here. So I definitely think that's worth -4 points because it is a terrible character, terribly dislikable. And I don't understand how even Christina bonded with her because really nothing in her story made me at least sympathetic towards her. But that being said, again, this is a 2 out of 10 episode for our mostly objective ranking. Our season 2 ranking so far in our mostly objective ranking has in first place Make Me Lose Control, Into You Like a Train, Deny, 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 Thanks for the Memories, Enough is Enough, Something to Talk About, Let It Be, Much Too Much, Bring the Pain, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, and then in last place at 11 is this episode, Owner of a Lonely Heart. So for this episode, I didn't think it was a terrible episode, however, I also didn't love it. I did find that I appreciated the closure on the patients that we had left the previous episode ambiguously. So we found out that Mr. Martin basically is in a coma, guaranteed pretty much to die. I mean, Alex is sitting there at the end of the episode to wait for him to die so he doesn't die alone, essentially implying that he is definitely going to die. And then with the quintuplets, we get happy stories for 4 of them, and 1 of them does pass on. I don't think it was as emotionally impactful as it could be. One, because they were kind of using the opportunity to test Izzy or to teach Izzy a lesson, knowing that the Quint was going to die, which I think is kind of rude. And then the second reason is, of course, that in a show like this, where they do occasionally have patients die and they don't always have a happy ending to a story, it was kind of already on my mind that at least one was going to die, if not more. And they couldn't have like a fully happy ending. So because you had that mental preparedness going into the episode that probably at least one would die, the fact that one did die doesn't have as much impact as if it had been a surprise, or if there actually had been the surprise of a fully happy ending where all of them did live. Then with the new patients, I mean, one was a guy with the leeches, and he seemed like a really nice person, but compared to like all of the other cases, his kind of didn't really stand out. And then we had the prisoner lady, and she was just annoying. And I get that she was lonely, and Christina kind of bonded with her, but at the same time, did not like the character. And I did not like the character's personality. And also just like the dumbness of swallowing a light bulb after swallowing 4 razor blades. It's like at that point, maybe let nature take its course. But then again, I didn't like the character, so wasn't really rooting for any sort of outcome either way with that particular character. So basically, and then even on the drama, it was drama light. There was like touching base on Christina and Burke living together. There was Izzy and Meredith getting a dog. There was George pining over Meredith, but they've done that before. Even the fallout from Alex cheating was mostly just like, we're not talking to him now. Not really a big fight. And then Addison and Derek arguing about the trailer. And then she admitting that she's lonely. Like, it's like there was a little bit of drama, but it was very light on the drama. It was mostly like a closure episode to the cases of like the quintuplets, really. That was the majority of the episode, all of their issues. And like I said, I prepared myself mentally knowing that at least one would die because that's just the nature of the show. And as a result, it didn't have the same impact that it otherwise would have. Also, it did, again, leave the distaste in the way that it was handled. Therefore, overall, I decided to give this episode a 3 as I didn't really enjoy it, but at the same time, it's not like super duper terrible like a 1 or even a 2. It's 3, I think is fair. And that then brings our season 2 ranking so far in the personal ranking to in first place, Make Me Lose Control. Second, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Third, Something to Talk About. 4, Into You Like a Train. 5, Deny, Deny, Deny. Let It Be. Thanks for the Memories. Much Too Much in 8th. 9th, Enough is Enough. Bring the Pain in 10th. And this is currently my least favorite of the season, Owner of a Lonely Heart. That now brings us to our final segment, the series ranking so far, and on our mostly objective ranking, Season 1 ended out with 77.78%, and Season 2 so far has earned 82 out of possible 270 points. Then on the personal ranking side, we had Season 1 ending out with 66.67%, and Season 2 so far has earned 79 points out of 270. With that, we've now rewatched and ranked Grey's Anatomy Season 2, Episode 11, Owner of a Lonely Heart. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.